Welcome back to the captain's quarters. We're here, Cantina crew, all together.
Here we are,
and we are locked into an autopilot landing sequence to land at Akron to talk about another episode of Skeleton.
What? Wait, I thought we were going to Akron.
You thought we were going to do
that. And yeah, this episode 5.
4.
No, 4. Don't get ahead of yourself. Halfway mark.
Can't say I remember no Atten is the title of the episode, which is probably my favorite line in the episode that gets repeated numerous times.
Yes, it's like a hinge point of the entire episode, which is amazing. Yeah,
I really enjoyed this episode. It was interesting to sort of land on inverted world with the French Resistance, but it was cool. Like I liked the vibe, and the Daniels sort of just crushed it. To see a linear story from the Daniels, I thought was just something wonderful to be. Sort of like a classic.
We'll get to it.
Sort of story from them, live action story from them was so interesting. I thought they just crushed it. Kind of a Neil centric episode too, which was like.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
What did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for the Neil episode forever.
So, let me take. I'm going to take a slightly different approach to this. Not negative. But one thing I want to say about the Daniels is I was also going like, this entire episode, I'm like, this is really like kind of straight down the middle. Let's go, like, this is not what I was expecting from them, but well directed, like really well put together. But like you said, linear storytelling, and then there's a moment at the end of this episode where I'm like, oh, there they are. There's the Daniels. Like they like the with the 33 confrontation at the end, which we'll talk about. It gets very Daniels. Like there's a couple of neat directing tweaks in that.
Are you talking Eopies in the fog or a certain?
No, like after, like when 33 goes bad at the end. There's a real scene there. But so I'm somewhat more mixed on this episode, mostly positive about it. I am feeling personally a bit of pacing issues possibly going on, but I realized here's my question, or here's my thoughts on this. It depends. How I feel about this episode depends on whether this is a 8-episode miniseries or if this is a series that's going to have a second season. If it's going to have a second season, I love this episode. This episode's great. If this is an 8-episode miniseries, there's a little bit of fat that could have been trimmed.
Can I like sort of concentrate your argument a little bit more into something that I feel like is what you're looking for out of the pacing, which is, I think, more paced out moments with Jude Law. Like you're kind of like, Jude Law just disappears for large periods of time. And you're just like, I want to know more. Like, who is this guy? And now it sort of feels like there's a magic trick going on where it's like, if you kind of did let his story bleed into the fabric of the show and then the kids and all that stuff, like it wouldn't feel like we now know there's some sort of like two-hander thing happening with him where there's something else that's to happen that he's just shrouded in mystery, and they're like literally shrouding him in fog at like the end of this episode.
Yeah, I feel like we got about like a fifth of his full story in there, and then he drops like little eggs like right at the beginning where he's like, tastes like ashy dust, a lot like my home planet actually, just like thrown in there, and you're like, I wonder if that's gonna be important later. Like, I don't know, just kind of cool. But then like,
that's all we have to go on. That's it. Yeah, like we're not giving much, and so when you talk about pacing, it's almost like, what's going on with Jude Law? Like, if there's a second season? I get that you're holding back so much here because you're not just going to have a massive reveal and then dispatch with the character. Like that's, unless he dies or sacrifice play. I mean, that's in the cards for Star Wars as well.
And like you can spend more time on characters like Neil, who again, favorite character. I love we get more Neil, but it's also just like we're meeting these French Resistance again. Loved it, but I'm also like, what are we doing here? And then like literally, if you were to take the beginning and end of the episodes, that's the only thing that moves the plot forward. The entire mystery plot forward. It's about 5 minutes of this episode.
Ben looks like he wants to come hot right
now. But again, trying to take away this idea that it's just 8 episodes as a single episode television, I thought was really, really good.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
All right. Yeah. Sure. I feel like you guys are punching above my weight class as far as breaking this thing down, but to me, it felt like, yes, it was like, all right, we've now gone on the side quest, and I think it's like, I think the Daniels have 2 episodes in a row, right? It's this one and the next one, so they may have a little duology here. We can double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
We'll double check.
I believe so. I will double check. I know the writer's different.
I just feel like, the only thing they have left to do is sort of reveal Jod's like sort of deal, and then reveal the deal with the planet, and that's it, right?
It's Jake Schreier doing the next episode.
Oh, okay.
So not the
Yeah, and the next 2 episodes are written by a different writer than the first 4 and the last 2. So there's like this 2-episode different writer coming in. So I expect something different.
Oh, okay.
But
so
anyway,
was Lowry and John Watts the only people that got 2 episodes then?
Yes, I believe
Correct.
so. And then we got, yeah.
Anyways, so I just feel like I think we're gonna get a little episodic stuff going through here, and each episode is the more I watch this, Adam, the more I think you were really onto something with the the Wizard of Oz thing. It's not going to be literal because that would be boring, but I do think we're going to get that where sort of like each kid is featured, and then we as we travel through a couple more of these planets, I think, and then it's finally sort of the ultimate mystery is revealed.
Yeah. And I like that conceit, right? I like the conceit at the end where it's just like Adatton's coordinates are gone, but we have all these other coordinates, and we have to assume every planet is a carbon copy of the other planet, so we'll just go to another one. And I am really looking forward to seeing like the different ways these planets have developed.
So they've got 4 more episodes to do it. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and they have enough time to drop like breadcrumbs for 4 episodes before we get a big set piece or whatever. If we're gonna get that at the end.
Yeah, for me, every episode has sort of been establishing a pirate trope, and the pirate trope in this episode is that the treasure is a long-sought treasure, and SM-33 is actually, much like Treasure Island and other sort of pirate books. There's usually a pirate that had already been investigating the treasure before the current ensemble investigates the treasure, and it's sort of cemented that sort of trope in this episode, which I loved. That was actually my favorite part of the episode. I thought the French Resistance, just for the novelty of a French fling for Neil, was like a little bit like strange. Like, given that Ryloth and has been embroidered with French culture in such a wonderful way, and like you see Star Wars use that culture in a very interesting way, and then I thought this was a kind of like just a sort of base way to use the French culture. But that's just my own point of view.
It's also like the other thing that I was kind of rubbing up against a little bit about this, and this is simply because with the subject matter I teach and the fact that I had to listen to 2 weeks ago, I'd listened to 5 students' presentations about human trafficking and children soldiers. That I was just watching this going, we're dealing with a kind of a big issue here, somewhat lightly, that we're like putting kids into like, and there's no blasters actually fired that I remember there's no confrontation, nothing ever happens. So I was expecting it to be like a Star Trek thing where they don't actually fight, like they pretend.
It was like Charles de Gaulle, but child soldiers.
Yeah.
It was just, to me, I was like, this is, I get it. You're going for the classic liberté, resistance, like sort of storytelling. I get it. Like, I get it. It's great. It's actually what Star Wars is. It's the blood of Star Wars. You think you're kind of, what you're doing is you're actually pouring back out the blood of Star Wars. And I love that approach. But like, to me, it was just like, I didn't get the child soldier aspect of it. There was nothing interesting about the Troiks or the Hatton. I was just like, they're very one-dimensional, sort of like warring factions. Like, they're not the Brackens and the,
Harlaws?
What are they called? What are they called in Game of Thrones? the Brackens and the Blackwoods.
The Blackwoods
Sorry.
and the Brackwoods.
They're not like, there's nothing like, there's not like a lot of depth to what's going on or why they're fighting. And then the kids are investigating why they're. Neil really has a really fun sort of heart-to-heart talking about.
Yeah, Neil's great and everything about him. To me, it felt very much like an early Star Trek episode, even like Next Generation, where you just kind of land on a planet, you get this very basic
French
introduction to this culture, and it's a lot of like whatever. But like, again, a lot of great moments. I thought the acting was great. I really like. I feel like I'm coming down. I feel like you and I are maybe feeding on each other a little bit because I'm not as negative as they probably
I think
sound.
That whole interaction between Neil and then these soldiers was I think it's just laying some breadcrumbs for, and the treasure is the friends we made along the way. Like, And I think that's the only purpose it's served.
Yeah, that's actually what's happening.
Right, and that's just going to be
that's, I mean, but that's to say that that's happening and that's well and good. Yeah. I'm just trying to, like, jump onto the overarching, the room and breaking this and what the show is and what this episode needs to be. I'm sort of on that deep elemental angle, whereas what the show's doing is great for the kids. Like, I can't even, like, applaud these kids more than I've been doing on this coverage, because it's like they're so good. They're really great. There's great breakdowns and incredible sort of character development between Wim, Fern, Neil gets like such a fun.
The fact that it's a child actor in a suit is really impressive to me.
Yes,
because it's like, I mean, granted, he's probably got like 3 guys that are controlling his face, but like still, like he does a great job delivering lines, and it's cool.
The other physical, like
the hands thing, he's like, slap ball
below the head, the hands,
and he's like,
slap ball.
The biggest fight I've been in is with my brother. Cars took my stole my protractor.
I saw.
My God! So
I saw the actor who portrays Neil like in doing the press stuff, and I'd assumed that he just provided the voice, and there was a little person in the suit, and then to find out that he's actually in that suit is amazing. Like it's great. Yeah.
Right on, man.
I also love the amount of parkour.
Yeah. The
for
parkour exit.
Sake, that she does like 4 times. I was cracking up by the 4 times. So it's like, that's really great.
It was like Power Rangers, French Resistance.
It's like, my revolutionary girlfriend, I'll miss you.
And see, that's I thought the novelty aspect that they were going for was, she is this bold revolutionary sort of fighter, freedom fighter.
Right, but like kind of iconic. For Star Wars, right? There's all this. It's Star Wars is mostly about revolution and all those things, and so it's just kind of funny to see like a, chubby kid in overalls like meet one, like come to face, and it's that juxtaposition which shows them like how much they've actually missed.
There's definitely a Star Trek-y vibe, like Adam's saying too, where it's just like landing, in Paris circa like 1941. Like.
Yep.
Right on. So where do we? I mean, so I. The first thing I remember was that line from Jod that was like, it tastes like, like the ashy dust, a lot like my, home planet, actually. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to just keep going?
Oh, is that in the beginning? Does he say that right off the bat?
When they get off the ship.
When they get out right off the ship,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to do some solving about his backstory based on that, but I don't think that's much to go on.
No, other than unless he's the captain and he's been brainwashed, which is sort of crazy.
Okay, so now we're getting into fun territory. Like, we do get mention of an older, deeper, later in our conversation, we'll probably talk about SM-33 and sort of his prior captain, and who that could be, right?
That's one of the big mysteries, right?
Yeah,
because it seems to be like a real big setup in this episode. It's like a massive setup,
but they're not teasing it. Like, they're not really laying any things down. The thing about Smee to me, or 33, is this, like, he is such an odd looking, and I talk about this every episode, he's such an odd looking droid, and he seems really old school droid. So like, I don't know if this ship is not like, if he hasn't been stuck on this planet for 1,000 years, right? Like, it might be that long.
He does look a little bit like, remember that talkie droid that we saw in the comics that ended up like fixing Lobot?
Oh yeah, which is the High Republic, right? High Republic droid.
No, it was like
when they get him, right? Wasn't he like?
It's so
it was ancient.
Yeah,
it was like 20,000 years old.
But
the design's not entirely dissimilar to Smee.
Yeah, and similar like Huang, which that's on my brain because it's got the black figure,
proper
series
flex.
figure. But like like very like you could see a lot of like the joints and a lot of like it looks more robotic.
Pistons and hydraulics
most droids
and stuff.
Look. Yeah, exactly. So Jod talked about the ash, and the first thing that popped in my head is like, well, this is part of the Mandoverse, and we do have a lot of talking about the raising of Mandalore, and if he was a Force-sensitive kid who grew up on Mandalore, who hates Jedis, right, for the most part, or at least, is he an ex-Mandalorian?
Yeah, that actually puts the show in a really fun relationship with the Mandoverse, in that, like, it won't just be Sabine, Bo-Katan, and others who are looking to lead the Mandalorians. Like, this guy could come out of the woodwork, basically.
Yeah, and be kind of welcomed, right? Because like they're now Din Djarin and the others are more welcome.
And he's a Jedi,
like, Force
and
users.
they're looking for a new Mandalore, but Sabine obviously is her Force powers are coming along as well. So it's like I'm all for Sabine.
Dang, Adam, that's a great call because if you look at the animation for the new Mandalorians, the Disney Mandalorians, they all look like Jude Law. If you look at under Duchess Satine, it's like they have the same hairline. Yep. It's like bright blue eyes.
I do need to hear Jude Law say Mandalorian. Like I do need to hear him say it at some point.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I will say for all of our listeners, I have a 0 batting average when it comes to predictions for any Star Wars show.
What Adam and I really need to do is just.
I'm hoping I'm gonna get like
happen.
one of
Ben,
these.
what is going to happen?
Yeah, Ben's what's gonna happen?
I mean.
What is the call?
Where does it? Yeah, I don't know. I think disaffected. Actually, because they do need to come up with something creative for Jod that's more than just like, I didn't join or I was left behind or something. I don't know. I don't know what his. I have no idea what his deal is, and I love that. I have several ideas and no clear front runner, right? And same thing for who's the captain, right? That's another big mystery. And then, what's the deal with these jewels of the Republic, right? That's the third. Those are the only 3 real big questions they have to answer. And, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good things. I love High Republic I really like Old Republic for this would be really cool. If you start putting the scale of thousands of years in there, it's interesting. And
yes, please.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I think that's the timeline is great importance.
That is
while watching the show, and I'm constantly referring back to the timeline itself, the book I have, and what I know about this time, and it's like, and what this is the High Republic when AT-AT and all these treasure worlds were sort of secreted away. Like when did that all happen?
Like you could think like post Nihil attack. Right? Like, is that when they're like, well, we're vulnerable, so we're going to hide these
Wim says
away,
something and they cut him off at some point in this episode where he's like 400 years ago when the jet, and like someone's like, stopped. Yeah. And I was like, wait, no.
Yeah.
No, let him talk.
And he did it another time, too. He's like, oh, wait, is this one of those stories where you're having a revolution against the adults? And blah, blah, blah.
Ben was like, Ben lurched forward.
Yeah, I did. I was like, oh, buddy.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, keep going.
Yeah,
what?
Go on. I mean, but that's like another trope that he was like, it was a little bit of a wink and a nod to the audience. It's just like, oh, is this going to be that story? And just because it's like, no, it's not.
So my brain, as I said earlier, is that's when I'm like, oh, we're dealing with Star Trek, because that's literally a plot of a Star Trek original series Star Trek episode. So I was just like, sort of like, is that like a reference to that, or is it just like you said, it's a trope? It's a trope though too. So
but it probably started there.
Lord of the Flies.
Or Lord of the Flies, I guess, but they didn't really.
Yeah, and so that is early on when they're all walking around the planet for the first time, and like, it is like Terminator post Judgment Day. Like when they get there, it's just like it's just like looks awful.
Yeah,
the playground is no longer intact,
but instantly recognizable to the children as just designed exactly like their home planet.
Yeah, it's like their home, but just dystopic, and that's the episodes. They land on this sort of dystopic version of AT-AT, and this planet's called Akron, and there's a bunch more planets that were.
They list them all off at the end.
Yeah, I bet one of us has them.
Yeah, and by one of us we mean.
Oh well, let's see.
At Averin.
There's one like at Alu, I think. I had to watch this on my phone the first time, and I couldn't read anything, and it killed me. And so when I watched it the second time, I was like, all about that life.
I do. Well, what if Jod's a Strandcast clone of Palpatine? Because Ashy.
Oh, I love that.
I love it.
It's like Ashy there.
We really need a bingo card or like a.
Oh yeah.
Because like we could work them in.
I have them all here.
The Strandcast deserves stories too. All right.
Or
human lives, as Blue Coon would say.
Do you want the names? So it's at Akron, at Akoda, at Aravan, at Arisia, at Atten, and then at Tayu.
All right, if we're to go to one other than at Akron, which one are we going to?
A Tayu sounds like a pretty great, because it sounds like a Treyu, which is like from Neverending Story. So that's my goal. They're going to reference.
Yeah, I think they mentioned at I2 and at Arisia and at Aravan.
Arisia. See, I think Arisia is like worth going to.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think it's. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 3. Like, wouldn't it be? I don't know. I would just if we we go to the next one and they strike out again,
because they'll each have surveyors towers, right?
Yeah, they have the same tower.
And, I mean they have to. They're carbon copies. It seems like they really set these.
So then Atom's coordinates will just be at one of the other planets. If they can just...
Yeah, that was the thing where I'm like, I had to remind myself these are kids. They are still learning, but when they're up to like, what are we gonna do at the very end? I'm like, you're gonna go to one of these other planets. Yeah. What are we doing? What come on, kids.
What do we do now?
Come on. Come on, figure it out.
Like, we're gonna have a Fern conversation at some point too.
Captain Fern.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a montage and they hit a bunch of these planets and then do something else. We're gonna tie in.
Oh, please don't montage me.
Don't montage you. Okay.
Don't do that. Don't Rise of Skywalker me. Like let's let these planets breathe. Let each planet breathe and have it be a puzzle, right? Like SM-33 probably sabotaged a bunch of these planets. And we're gonna find the one that he did not get to destroy the coordinates.
Right, but I don't think they sabotaged those planets because Smee was saying like, oh, and the last time I was here, we had to sneak past these guards to get to the thing. So I think it was more about hiding the planet that they found than actually interacting with these other folks. I mean, it could be each one has its own specific flavor that sort of tells more of the story, but it could be really repetitive where they all kind of are just broken and desolate and they're like, oh, what's this? And then they go up the tower and then they leave.
Well, it's funny because they did already set up in the last episode, right, that all of the other jewels had been destroyed, right? Raised, destroyed. But I mean, I guess you could say that they destroyed them different ways. There could be other things, but it does lead you to be like, well, you're not going to go to one that's going to be like a glistening planet of like a utopia, right? Like they're going to be different, I'm guessing different flavors of dystopian places, but I don't know. I mean, is there just one that's going to be all beasts? Is there just one that's going to be all creatures, where it's just taken over by all the creatures of the planet? Would be kind of fun.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning. The fact that we do have a main character in Neil having a main role with another character, and they're just acting across from each other, and it feels perfectly natural, I think is a huge accomplishment for Star Wars.
Don't you think the next one they need to see is the hyper efficient version of their world, where it's like people are almost robotic and like insensitive or something like that, where it's like, whoa, this is like,
oh, there's truly gonna be a droid planet, right?
Like a hyper version of their planet.
I know,
because we just saw the dystopic version. Like we're gonna see something new now. Like all the themes, everything about it has to be completely different.
I'm looking for the actual quote here. I think it was destroyed, but I don't know if it's more nuanced than that. But I mean, but destroyed means destroyed, right?
Yeah, everyone being every like walking, mobile, platform on the planet could be robotic and droid. Like it could be no living beings on the planet. It's just everything's a droid. And that's
home planet of the droid Gatra. That's Cantina Chronicles bingo right there.
There you go.
I'm starting to think like SM-33 Smee and his captain were droids, or like droid pirates or something like that. Like, because I'm like, could droid pirates have set a precedent for the pirates surrender or die, and then could this droid leadership and this weird old treasure planet sort of program, could that have also been droid run, and could droids be gotta be careful about droids? I don't know.
No, there's something there. There's something there for sure.
Ever since hearing Adam's droid theory, I was like, and then could the surveyor be like a Huyang model, like an old droid that we from the past, that would connect. We'd be like, oh, it's like Huyang, and we know Huyang's this old. Like, oh my goodness, these planets were settled a long time ago. It like instantly, it's almost like visual information. That's like, you wouldn't even need to do a lot of like the forced sort of storytelling. You could just show that, and we'd be like, oh, that's an old droid. Like, we know that model,
That would be fun. I wonder how hidden these planets are too. Like, I wonder, like, maybe they were destroyed, leveled, and then someone came along and found them and just was like, oh, these are hidden, I'm going to stay hidden out here. And like it was used for a different purpose. I don't know. You could do, if that's the case, you could do all sorts of things that just like took over the planet because it was hidden and did some wild stuff.
Right. I mean, the planet didn't seem to have like any type of shield around it, like Alderaan has, right? So you're right. It's like people could have discovered it.
It did look like it had like old shield machinery that was broken in space around it. It was tough to tell what those were, if they were lasers or if that was the old shield that was just like broken down. But
It did look like the old barrier, and there's a lot of comparisons to like Fallout and Silo and these sort of like vault or repressed society sort of stories that are on streaming right now. And Fallout had a really great reveal of like what is the sort of like, you know, at the top, at the behind the final door kind of Oz thing, and it's like this show is like banking on its Oz reveal, which is. Ooh, like it's really gonna bank on this maybe a sort of two-pronged reveal of like Jod and the surveyor and the captain, so it's triple pronged, right? Even the captain, the old captain, that was pretty much set up in this episode. We're going to learn the identity of the old captain. We're going to learn who and what the surveyors are, and we're going to learn who Jod Nanawood is by the end of the season.
Yeah. I can't wait.
And I really think Fern's mom, like Farah, I feel like she
has another part to play in this.
Yeah, it's more for her to do.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you said Fallout. Like, I wonder if these are vaults in a certain, you know, was this an experiment, you know, that some people did a long time ago with the 8 planets and just like 8 of them.
It kind of feels like outbound flight almost. Like it's. Kind of feels like that book a little bit, in terms of like a public project, you know?
Right. Remind me the
secret project. It was like a giant ship.
Right.
It is to go to the far reaches of space with like colonizers of the Republic, and it was like a science experiment. And
to boldly go.
The ship was one of the and it was like prized of multiple starships.
Yeah, and it's connected. Timothy Zahn wrote the book. It's connected to the Zahn trilogy, Thrawn trilogy, because I think the Jedi on Outbound Flight was Sabath, right? Sabath, whatever his name is, before he was cloned. So yeah,
it's a Zahn book.
Well, a lot of fun things there. What else came in? So we stolen Eopies. So we've got the story of that we didn't see about Jod. Jod's going through his stuff, rifling through the things, finds the cache, realizes that Smee knows more than he's letting on, tries to tease it out. And then we get one of the best lines in a Star Wars ever, where he's like, comes out, they see the warriors, and he's like, you know what? Just shoot me.
That was great.
Yeah. It was
very Han Solo, and I really do think Han Solo is the secret sauce of Star Wars. The older I get, and the longer I love this franchise and think about Star Wars, is the more I think about how Han Solo represents just a sort of like chaotic and neutral selfish guy out there for himself. That's adjacent to the fairy tale, the classic fairy tale, and.
Who has to get won over by it,
and yes, and then takes part in the fairy tale as he's kind of to me that's genius. That's the most genius part of Star Wars. I don't think, and I think you got to start that from the beginning, like they're doing with Jod. You can't like in the 11th hour make Poe a smuggler. I think like what they're doing with Jod and making him a Han Solo from the beginning is very fun. Like I really like.
No. I 100% agree, because you think about the 6 other movies, like the prequel and sequel trilogy. There's no real real Han Solo in those movies, and I think it's missed. Like you feel that missing a little bit. I mean, in the prequels, it's a little more understandable because you're so focused on the Jedi. You can't really have that character. It's hard to have that character in the Jedi.
Yeah, George wanted him in there. He wanted like Han on Kashyyyk and all this. How can I get young Han? Like, how can I get Han into this somehow, some way? And he's just, there are drafts with Han Solo in the.
Yeah, that would have been
third film.
That would have been rough, I think. But yeah, because he also would have been a kid, and like you don't want to.
There's Ian McKellen concept art for like that Han Solo too, which is really fun to look at. I think he had long hair and sort of a Tarzan vibe. It's very cool. It's a vibe, but it's obviously not.
So he totally. So wait, hold on. So that means he would have totally taught the Wookiees how to do the Tarzan yell that Chewie does in Episode 6, right? Like that would have been the origin. That's what George would have done. We all know that's what George would have done.
He has the most famous yell ever when he charges those stormtroopers in A New Hope. It's kind of legendary at this point.
It's so good. Yeah. That's funny. All this talk is like, and I don't normally say this, I'm feeling real like New Hope vibes, where I'm like, I might just in bed might watch like the first hour of A New Hope. Like, and I don't normally do that because that's the movie I've seen the most, and I watch it when I'm watching a series. But I've never, very rarely, even though it's like on like either number 1 or number 2 on my list, very rarely like I'm just gonna watch A New Hope. I just don't do that really. So, but I'm feeling it now.
Whenever I watch Rogue One, I'm like, I'm gonna run that back. It just,
that makes sense. Yeah, just roll right into
like,
it. Yeah,
you know, it's just like the Rogue One ends on a note that's like kind of a dissonant cliffhanger, and then like A New Hope resolves it, and then you're like, all right, there we go. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I would love to see the third act of Rogue One in IMAX again. Like, I would just love to see that. Like, there's nothing like that, honestly.
It's a beautiful third act.
They should do a re-release with Andor coming out. I wonder if they will. They might do, because they're doing so Revenge of the Sith they're doing the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. 20th, right? No. Yeah, 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith that's coming out in May. I think they're doing another re-release, which we can all go to, but I don't know if because we already sat through the marathon.
How about this? A creative sort of double feature that's the Andor finale and Rogue One. Andor ends. Yeah. It's like a creative sort of fade to black. Rogue One, bang, it like starts, and then
I think I read that.
And then we do all the credits for both at the end, basically, and sort of this fun
sort of
stitched together thing.
Yeah, that would be so fun. I'm definitely. It's, you know, whenever Skeleton Crew ends, they prompt Andor, probably because it's like the next thing that's happening, and I'm just like, no, not yet. I'm like waiting to do my rewatch.
I know. I'm like, hold your boat. Like, yeah, exactly. Carly are like, should we just start? No, we gotta wait. No, we gotta wait. It's too soon.
But it'll be worth it.
Yep. Have to finish Black Doves first, then maybe the Penguin.
Right on. Do you think there was anything else to that Jodna story, or we got it? It just happened off screen,
I think it's a lie. I think he's lying. I don't think he just gave them credits. I think he kept those credits.
Oh, I like this.
I think he kept those credits. Oh. I think he Jedi mind tricked the leader of that group.
This take.
And then sent them on their way had them leave the Eopes.
Oh, that's funny.
That's such a good point, because I'm like, what? So did they have any contact with the outside world? Do they talk about trading? I think they talked about trading, right? With the Eopes,
he says,
or not? Or am I thinking
he
something
did.
else? Did they talk about
the French guy said the only trading we do with off-worlds is furs for munitions.
So I guess there would be need for credits, so they would like credits, but like I like this take, Grant, because I'm like, I just took it at face value because that's who Jod is presenting as, but I like the idea that he's trying to hide which is a very Han thing to do, right? You hide your noble intentions and you play up the scoundrel side. But I love the reveal. I love the episode 1 reveal of Jod coming through the mists with an Eopie. It's very similar to the Gungans coming through the mist, right? Like, I love that. And the hero moment of just to be completely deflated with like, no, I gave money.
Yeah.
I just bought
but
it
would.
Yeah.
I wonder if I love that, Grant, because I definitely thought, I'm like, oh, did he just mind trick those guys into doing whatever? But I didn't really like do the full follow that thought down the rabbit hole, like what it could mean. I mean, if anything, that could be more, I don't know, scoundrel-like, to just, because like, what if they kind of come to and are like, wait a second, where are our Eopes? And then like, challenge, get into another battle with those people, and he's pocketing the cash for whatever reason,
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough credits to go around. I just don't know. I just don't understand.
Is anyone else really stressed about their credits?
30 soldiers and like 8 credits. I was like,
yes.
I'm like, you have like $8 and you're just spreading them everywhere, and it's like, that's important and that's very valuable, and stop it.
I know, it's like, we're the adults in the room. I'm just like, she's got a whole lot. What are you doing? What are you doing with your cash? Like, come on. Like, you gotta be
But that was funny. Seeing Eopes back in Star Wars was always a blast. So.
Yeah. And horned Eopes, so they iterated on it, to maybe like, no, these grew up on a different planet, so they evolved in a slightly different way.
Yep.
Is that so much to ask? Like, that's so great. It's so great.
There is I don't want to actually comic book store guy anything in this episode, because I hate doing that. But
do.
There is a guy who's in the French Resistance and the Troik who has a mud jumper hat from Mimban, like a helmet from Mimban, and I was like, that's okay. They said trading, I guess that's the out, but stop.
So
Adam,
ammunitions, right?
The mud jumper helmet to me is like, okay, I guess time's gone by, the barrier's been broken. Okay, never mind.
You solved it. You kind of solved it.
I don't think it was accidental. It was too front and center, And all their helmets, I think they could be stormtrooper helmets with the faceplate missing. Like they all kind of have like sort of the back of the helmet thing. I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of designs.
Yeah, a lot of them look like Death Star. What's it called? Death Star Commander,
guys.
Or like there's a lot of different ones.
Yeah, you know, when they showed the Mim Bomb, I don't think that was just like a wink to the audience. I feel like maybe it could be.
Well, like places it in time,
right,
but I guess the trading is the out. I thought that the world was still sort of a secret world where no one.
Well, are these people original dwellers at Akron, or are they people that landed here later? Like, how did these people get?
Yeah, here? Good point. Time's gone by.
That's a good question. Yeah,
the barrier
really
is not up anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I talked myself out of that argument where I thought that like.
I do that
broke
all
the
the time.
timeline or the timing for At-Atten. I was like, oh well, then At-Atten can't be older than the Empire.
Yeah,
by having.
But At-Atten's hidden, and we don't know how long.
Yeah, there's always a way.
But then I guess the trading is the way out for the dialogue. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's more to that. Like, I wonder, like, if there was a group of like Imperials dispatched to that planet or found it, and they all got like murdered and like
probably taken out by the Hattons or the Troik or
and then the Empire fell and everyone forgot about it or something. Like, you know, it could have been anything. But yeah,
it's just a war-torn, resourceless sort of planet. Like you wouldn't be seeking it out.
I mean, that's kind of a fun thing to just insinuate. It's just like, the Imperials went there and just got murdered, and then they just like.
It is cool. Like if
stuff,
if you're already putting a mud jumper helmet in the story, it's like to have a little aside that's like some Imperial something. That would be so delicious for us, but it's fine.
I think they're going to surprise us with how much they give us. Like, as much as I'm like, well, it just makes sense to sort of hop planet to planet here. They're going to make it more spicy than that. Whether it's like reintroducing the pirates into the situation, or I don't know. I think it's.
I'm looking for some zest.
Yeah,
I'm looking for some zest.
We haven't seen the last of Brutus,
but like some stuff we're not expecting. Like if it just becomes episodic for 3 episodes of like, okay, next planet. I mean, it could be funny. I'm sure they can find a way to do that in an enriching way, and everyone's going to be drastically different. But I don't know. I think they're not done surprising us yet. Because I've been surprised in every episode with just like so many small decisions, but like we're talking about, and then large decisions as well.
Yeah. Can I talk just for a second? I just want to give a shout out because I think it's really a good Star Wars trick where they love to take actors, well-known actors from other countries, pop them in, and so General Strix is like. The actor is it's Mateo Kassovitz, who is a huge French actor.
Yeah,
like really big in France. Like it does the show The Bureau, which is I've heard very, very good things about. I kept meaning to do. It's like he did like 5 seasons of that. He was in Amelie. I was kind of reading over his stuff on Wikipedia, and I just want to take a side note here. So they talked about the fact that does anyone remember the movie Gothica?
Yep,
with Ethan Hawke,
with Halle Berry.
So I just want to read. I love Wikipedia editors. So this is someone who has a grudge against loves Gothica and has a grudge against people who diss it because it goes. This is the line, and it talks about all these stars and Gothica, a fantasy thriller. Start parentheses. Considered by some to be a commercial failure, although it grossed over 3 times its roughly $4 million budget. End parentheses. I'm like,
some Gothica hardcore.
Brought to you by the producer of Gothica.
I've been at Jeopardy with what is Gothica at some point in his life.
Yeah, but like talk about the like actually.
What is Gothica? It's like you were the only
love
person
that parentheses. The person who wrote that is like so like it's got to be like it's either Robert Downey Jr. or actually the producer of Gothica. Like, who remembers? That's hilarious. Oh man, I kind of want to like edit it again.
I'm excited for RDJ. He's won his Oscar. He's come back to super. He's like, let me step out of the superhero limelight and win an Oscar real quick.
Yeah,
and then I'll come.
Right. Yeah, let me just do one film. Let me do one thing. Win that Oscar, and go right back to the other thing and make my billions. I love it. I'm just gonna step over here and win an Oscar, and then I'm gonna come back.
I hate to derail you, but what did he win an Oscar for? Oppenheimer, of course. Yeah. Sorry, brain not working good.
Anything else to say about this episode? I'm trying to think here. My mud jumper helmet was a huge note that now I actually self-argued way, so we're good.
Okay, we're good on that front. It's okay, we're good there. All right, here, I have one quick comment and then a question for you. One quick comment. I think there's more alien species here than there is in
Yes.
Well, there are Thorians on.
There's no Thorian in the tank.
It was Rhodians.
Oh, well, that's right. I forgot there's a Thorian. What else?
I don't think there are Rhodians on the other
right.
There's definitely one here, and there was another alien that I didn't recognize, like a stall, and I didn't recognize the species at all. It was,
Isn't there a Klatooinian general, like soldier next to Strix at some point?
Maybe I didn't see.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right. That was the comment there, and I think that's great. They're letting all the aliens do all the things in this series, and I love that.
So good.
What's the cannon for? What do you think about that the giant cannon that she's like, hey, check this out?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I
it's like in
I
the
assume these planets almost have
it's like very Fallout. It's like even the schools have these giant AA turrets.
Right. It was that's a good point. It was in the weird. Yeah.
I mean, is this like another layer of defense if they were invaded, that they could just use these super weapons?
Probably.
To just and they're on the roof of
I mean, that
school,
just shows that they're... That's
what makes me think it's separatist. Super. It's like the more we talk about Republic, I'm just like, not even separatist, but people concerned about the Republic who then are isolationists, essentially, when the Clone Wars begin. They're sort of like, oh, we've got to But again, I guess it's soon. No,
but I think you're right. I just go back to more High Republic, right? Post Nihil attack, right? Yeah. This fear leads to isolationism happens at every country. Whoever goes through war, then immediately goes through a phase of isolationism. It's like the most predictable thing you've ever seen, and for the Republic to do that, hide away these things, and then put cannons on the top of the schools. It's like the same thing as having bomb drills, atomic bomb drills in schools,
or
it's this fear.
600 AD Viking raids, essentially, and the invention of the highway in ancient Britannia. You know what I mean? The invention of the highway was to stop pillaging, and the auto turrets on schools are probably used for Nihil attacks, which we know were, barbaric and sort of done in a sort of ambushing sort of style that you'd need turrets everywhere to combat a storm cloud or whatever that
or to dissuade one. I got a little stuck on when you said the Confederacy of Independent Systems, Grant, because you've mentioned this many times, but now that I think about it, there was another small thing that I didn't make a note about. But when we first meet the Troik, or maybe it's the Hanan, they have a tank, and it looks a lot like a droid tank, right?
Yeah,
it does look.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the official designation for that tank. What?
Yeah, it's like an AAB attack.
How dare
tank.
you then?
It's not a droid actually. It's actually a tank manned by droids.
Yeah, so it could be manned by men. And I mean, it could be that they bought that, on the aftermarket or whatever. The same thing as
that stuff's all over the galaxy, right? We already saw Dodd, prod a battle droid earlier. So I mean, that stuff's everywhere. But to me, it's as a Star Wars fan, I kind of wish there was some retroactive storytelling with the Confederacy of Independent Systems and the Clone Wars. To me, I think the Clone Wars TV show is fantastic, and there's wonderful lessons in each episode. And I love the epithet at the beginning of every episode, and I love that show deeply. I think the Clone Wars needs an upgrade in terms of exploration and elucidation of what the trauma and the impact is of that war. I would really love a prestige streaming show that sort of highlights the Clone Wars in a way.
100%. There's tons of room for it, which is amazing.
And a Band of Brothers, we've seen the success of Brothers. We've seen the success of these shows that are in the theater of war and digging maybe into the politics, philosophy, and maybe some secret, operations.
Grant, you've mentioned this countless times over, the 370 odd podcasts we've done. But I think I finally get it, which is hey, bringing up the rear here. But
it's the backfilling that I think
because
needs to be
you're
done.
right, because it's
the actual.
I do commend the Filoni storytelling, because it's very Lucasian, and it's there's good and bad and good triumphs and great, and it's but there's no room for nuance. It's almost like what you're looking for is a little more elevated storytelling, and
you need a Rogue One,
that's what you're thinking. It's
on the Clone Wars.
Andor kind of opened that door where it's just we can really get into this, and it is a war and all that. But there's stories within stories, and I mean, you think about that arc where you had the rogue Jedi that was just like killing clones, the Ponkrell like arc, and like that was a little more nuanced, but it's still good versus evil, and like bad things happen. But this is more just like drilling down, and you're right. There's a lot of room there too.
A lot there.
And the other thing about the Clone Wars, which again, hard agree, love it, it's great, but it's its own thing, right? There's room for more. And the thing about the Clone Wars cartoon that the first time I watched it, I bounced off of it like 4 times. I had to keep like coming back to it, and then I did a rewatch, like I think pretty close when we started the podcast. I'm like, this is great. I actually like sat down, did the rewatch. I love it. But they're miniseries. They're not a collection. It's not a collection of a one narrative. It's miniseries arcs, which I love now, but like you're not following the same characters. Even when you're doing the Ahsoka thing, you're kind of telling different stories. The timeline jumps around, especially Ben, you're
in chronological order.
Not chronological, which I have to do now because I've never done it before. So I agree. Like there's room to tell a one narrative story, like a long story that follows set characters right through the Clone Wars.
I would take like a story that's both sides. Like I would take a Clone Wars, like a Republic angle,
like a north and south miniseries.
They did. It would be very interesting to sort of explore that war in a really deep and interesting way.
Well, remember the comic series that they had, like the TIE Fighter miniseries that went along with the I can't remember, it was like Han Solo
Imperial Cadet
Recruit, and then there was also Imperial Cadet, and there was also like the X-Wing side of that too. Like they did such a good job with like giving life to both sides.
Well,
both of those
in the Alphabet Squadron did that really well too, right?
Yes, thank you. That was the other one.
But you're right. Really during that time period, they did sort of telling both sides of the story a lot in a couple of different series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love it for the Clone Wars, and obviously we're so attached to so many characters in that period. But I feel like if they're gonna do that, there's got to be a new war and sort of investigate it that way. I mean, I guess that's what Rogue One is, or Andor is, but I think maybe you pick another war. I just feel like we've treaded over the Clone Wars so much that more. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't mind.
I just think
but I just feel like that's a lot of Clone Wars content but it's in the well if they want to do it.
No, I think, Brian, I think your opinion is shared by most of the creatives involved and executives involved, because I think they are hearing that fans want something new, and so I think the Clone Wars is like a hard steer away, like right now for the creative direction of Star Wars. But like, I'm a longtime Star Wars fan, and for me, like if I saw a trailer set to like the Tenet music of like Clone Wars stuff happening and giant set piece moments, I would be like,
oh my gosh,
where do I sign up? How do I watch?
Yeah, a live action Clone War would be ridiculous.
That's the thing. That's the reason why I think it would work, is because there's 2 reasons. One, there's a lot of people levels of of readership, I think, is like comics, books, animated series, live action series, movies, right? Of like who actually watches it from least to most actually engage with it.
Video games are in there
and
too.
There's a lot of video games definitely in there too. And I think there's a big gap between animated and live action. And I'm thinking of my wife in particular, who watches everything Star Wars does. Just does not have any interest in watching the cartoon, right? And,
so that's
and I think
the whole
that's a
audience
large
that
component
you could capture, right?
Yes, there's a huge audience there, and then the amount of online love to the point of annoying me and almost not liking it, so much love for showing Anakin in Ahsoka and showing him in Clone War armor stuff, like. I still see that every day on
it's
our
our
Instagram.
holy grail, man. You can't lie and say that like
people
OP
love it.
in the Clone Wars armor isn't like your holy grail live action
OP,
thing.
That's peak OB in a lot of ways. I mean,
so I don't understand the argument to steer.
I was
that's what
I was gonna say, Grant. My experience online is like of the greatest sphere of Star Wars fans. They love the Clone Wars, and they're especially in the video games. They want Clone Wars content more than anything. I really actually think that's a touch point.
Designs for the Separatists are so good. Those designs are incredible. I love the angles and the architecture and the sort of droid design.
I'm on board we just need all the Wat Tambor, and then I'm definitely on board.
Live
like,
action,
just like a whole side arc.
Yeah, the only problem with the Clone Wars show is like the Separatist general is going to be some hokey, campy, like giant tarantula, and like that's
I'm in.
It's not always the best. I feel like
come
we gotta
on,
figure out.
Star Wars. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, like Admiral Trench is like a bit much for people. I think like to get the Andor, to capture those people that Adam's talking about, like it's gonna have to be like a Band of Brothers where like every character is really well thought out and there's a lot of meticulous thought.
You have one Admiral Trench scene and the rest is just like
all right, Ben,
and then you have humans or like or easy because you also have like the thing
again. That's all grill stuff. You're talking about Grievous and Trench and like all like Kraken. Like all these characters are
Ventress.
But like there's just so much in there. But like again, a Clone Wars show to me would have to be like you're saying, Ben, new location. New
characters. I think just a
Quinlan
real like
Voss adventures.
Like that's
or
the thing
would
is,
be like,
you can have one like, in that show, but it has to be earned and like make sense and just end in applause. So like, there's one character that can maybe pop up in this Clone Wars, this hypothetical Clone Wars show, but like, no.
That's the thing. Like, we should never see Grievous. We should never see Trench because that's too high up the ranks. Right, like these are the grunts, right? Like we follow the grunts through it, and I just kind of thinking about talking about like Trench and the other people is like I just also wanted to comment on the fact that kind of a little off topic, but Ben talking about
well, we're talking about separate.
Further off topic.
We're good,
but like the number of aliens in the show that we've mentioned a number of times is not lost on your general Star Wars viewer. Again, as my wife is like the bellwether for this thing that I test, where she just. I didn't say anything. She was just like, I love how many aliens are in this show. Like, so even like any Star Wars fan who's not like us, who like completely like zeroes in and tracks these things, are really appreciative of that, right? Like she was just like the second episode, she was just like it was like the cantina scene for like a half an hour. It's great. Like,
my wife turned to me and said, I guess Neil forgot about his Furby love interest. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Can I also mention off topic a little bit, but I from last week, and I wanted to like do a corrections corner, or at least like we should own it, is we totally blew it on Crimson Jack.
He's a Marvel character from like 70s, the original Marvel.
He's the Marvel comics from he's a character from the 70s Marvel comic book series, the Star Wars.
I went to a comic book store and asked a comic book gentleman who runs the store who that character is, and then they literally pulled out issues and started pointing at panels. Yeah. I got actually.
So that's a old school Star Wars reference that we totally like. I can't believe it was the three of us. I was I
never read those comics. I had no idea. That's wild.
Yeah. He is also recanonized in current. There's been some mentions in the comics. Yeah, it's light. It's like light, like just a side note.
So
like
deep that we all missed it. That is impressive.
Yeah.
That's a lore bomb right there.
Yeah, right. We very rarely miss those things.
Yeah, no, I swear I never heard that name before, but it's so generic. Maybe we had and just didn't stick.
Yeah, and it's also those things like I think everyone's just like it's not the same character. It's just it's just a coincidence, or he just took that name, right? That's just he heard of the name once and said, "I'm gonna."
It's like one of his like aliases, alii.
Yeah,
that's not a word.
Well, to the New Republic, he's known as Crimson Jack, but
is it like the Dread Pirate Roberts, where it's just like he picked up the mantle of Crimson Jack from Crimson Jack?
Yeah, maybe Crimson. There's a lot of Crimson Jacks, right?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, use that name over and over again.
All right, so go ahead.
I mean, I was just gonna say, it's cool to see Jod doing Jedi things, and like, we've talked a lot about Jod tonight, but I just feel like he's like he didn't have to save the kids, and he saved the kids, and I guess you're right. He's doing more Han Solo things where it's like he does have a heart of gold. He does care about people. Yes, he's in for
those kids are the key to Ad.
The kids are the key to the treasure, right? So, but I like that because you still don't know this deep in where his loyalties lie, and I like that in this character. Where I'm like, he could be doing it because he's a Han Solo type who has a heart of gold, or he just knows these kids.
He just wants the treasure,
right? And that's why he's doing it.
But
it could be either one or both.
Qui-Gon vibes off him because I'm like, Qui-Gon would just like he doesn't want to do the flashiest thing. He just needs to like resolve the situation, whether it's through gambling or whatever else.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen, I've got to save these kids. He figured out what the dynamic of the place was, where the kids were, and he solved it with a couple credits. And it was like bing bang bong, came in, saved the day.
That to me, that's like where Phantom Menace sings, is sort of like Jedi interacting with seedy underworld. And like I love that piece of the Phantom Menace and what you're highlighting there. And it does feel like almost an inversion of that, where he is from the underworld and he is coming to interact with this treasure map. But in so doing, he's actually acting a lot like a Jedi sleuth or detective, right? Where he's sort of Jedi. That's what Jedi did. They investigated matters on different worlds, and it's essentially he's just doing a dark sort of Jedi plot line. Yeah.
Right. I think we talked about it maybe before the season started, or episode 1 or 2, but I really think this is his Jedi origin story. This is where he learns to be a Jedi, right? This is where he learns to do the honorable thing and the rewards of doing.
Yeah, because isn't he a wink? Like there are sort of stand-in characters from literature that I'm failing to remember right now. But like there are certain characters I think he is going to end this series by like a wink and a nod, and like you can always do good and like skip away. Like I almost feel like his whole thing is like, even if you're not a Jedi, you can do good. Like it's always a choice.
Yeah.
And then he's just out there being like Peter Panning almost, and it's like, he's the pirate and he's Pan at the same time or something, and it's fun. It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So Ben, you said earlier we should talk about Fern. Let's talk about Fern for a second, because I feel like last episode was KB's story in a lot of ways, right? We got a lot of KB in last episode. Yeah. And we got a lot of Neil in this episode. Next week's going to be I was going to say the exact same thing. It's got to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it felt like they sort of led into her own inner turmoil at the end of this, and she's just like, I'm faking it till I'm making it, and I'm a little over my head. But then she does sort of figure things out. Yeah. I'm like, it's not if I only had a brain. It's like it's like she's looking for she's looking for a focus, right, in her life. Like she's got all these skills, she has all this ability, and she just doesn't know how to focus it in the right way towards something that's important to her. And she does ultimately save the day, but I did feel bad. Poor Wim. He was such a foil like this whole episode, and he was just like, you're amazing. And he's like, he really idolizes her in a lot of ways. I mean, that's why he was helping her the whole time. And it was kind of cruel how blind she is to that. I think, by the end she'll recognize that, I don't know, that he really does look up to her. But I thought Wim was being authentic, and she's just like, you can't tell me what to do, you're just manipulating me, and and then she's like, oh wait, actually that's a good idea. And actually it almost gets them all killed. Yeah. But
I know. But she's going to be the one who also figures out the beginning of the episode, we have to go to these other planets, right? She's going to be the one that says we got to do this. So I agree. I feel like I like that character arc of hers, just so uber confident, and have that have her confidence shook, and then kind of solve the riddle, and then put him into bigger danger at the end is kind of amazing. Speaking of which, I love the fact that by the end, how many times they say, can't say I remember no at.
Can't say I remember no at.
So literally Carly at the same time is like, he can't say because he's not allowed to say. We were by the end, because they say it so many times, or and I just love that little twist of just that phrase that we've heard since episode 2, right? Episode 1 or 2 when we first meet him. That's one of the first things he says.
What always works is when a place plays tricks on you. He's in the beginning of the episode, he's like, planets like this, at Akron, play tricks on your mind or whatever. Got my memory circuits twisted, and I was just like, this always works for me when someone is being basically bombarded by the planet and sort of their memories on the planet and the strange sort of circumstance upon being there. It's that always works. It set up the mystery in such a beautiful way. I love that intro to sort of the planet. Him saying at Akron. Yeah. As our introduction to where we are.
And Jod is like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's a great way to do the reveal.
Yeah, that was a great reveal.
Yeah. No, it's I love talking through these episodes with you guys, because it always happens where I'm like, I love this episode. By the end of it,
it's great.
I just was watching it on the side of my kind of have it rolling on my iPad next to us so I can refresh. And the other thing that Jod just said that I forgot was when he rescues them, they're like, thank you. And he goes, yeah, of course. But he says this in a very throw off where he's like, like he doesn't take it, and then he goes, and then Captain Strix goes, "You sure you have these kids rather than their best hides?" And my favorite thing, he goes, "How many hides?"
Yeah, that was so good.
And then he does, and he's clearly a joke. And he does a good job though of like the uncle dad jokey moment, and like that he's actually joking in the moment, but the moment before, literally like seconds before, he's just like, why are they thanking me? Like this is weird.
They're
like,
luring us in though. He's so charming, and you just like his character, and you like him, and you want him to succeed. He's a villain. Like he'll be.
I don't think they're going to stab us in the heart like that. Not this show. I don't think so.
And I
think you're both right. I think there's going to be.
I think the kids are going to. Like Wim's going to be told nothing's real before he finds out everything's real. Like there's going to be a real breaking moment for Wim.
Guys. No, this is Star Wars. It's the first Star Wars. It's the Han moment. He's going to say, "See you around, kids," and then he's going to suddenly come back right at the last minute to save them, right? Like that, he's going to pull the Han
he turns the ship
maneuver.
around. Are you saying he turns the ship around and drives to the airport? Yes, he does. Like, it does happen.
100%, right? But he's gonna abandon them and then come back and rescue them. Like it's gonna happen.
No, that's definitely gonna happen too. Yeah, no, he's gonna do something villainous and then come back and do something good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's very I think that's what's going to happen. I wonder.
Because it's a healthy dose of stuff we expect to happen and want to happen happens, and then a bunch of stuff we didn't expect to happen that sort of enriches things in a good way.
Yeah,
perfect mix.
I'm also thinking like if Jod gets to At-Aten, is he going to lower the barrier for like a raiding party? Like there's a danger to Jod infiltrating At-Aten, in my opinion. That's what I'm worried about personally. Like
I'm nervous for him to get there.
Me too. I don't want him to
get I don't want him to get there.
No, charming dude. I don't think he needs to be there. He has no place.
Right. He's still got some growing to do, but his trajectory is promising. But you're right. Like
unless the droid does run the planet and only Jod can turn off the off switch, because we've seen him do it already, and it's like that's to me, it's like maybe that's why he does stop the sort of authoritarian sort of surveillance state that's happening there. Maybe he's needed for that. But I could also see him being like, kids, help me lower this barrier so I can have my pirates. So I can the gold that I promised pirates long ago, I can finally give to them. Pay off his
debts.
Be heralded as a great pirate king.
Deathmark is not an easy thing to live with. I wonder if some of that stuff happens, because I think we haven't seen the last of the pirates. For sure.
No, we also need to investigate
you don't introduce a Brutus and not.
We've investigated the Surveyor's Tower. I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode we're actually in the barrier system and what the barrier is like itself. Like we don't know what the barrier is at all.
No, we don't. And this episode, we didn't do any flashbacks to At-Aten. But it would be weird, right? But we didn't see the parents. This first episode.
I'm glad we didn't see the parents, because it feels more adrift and lost in space. It feels more like, why are we going back to At-Aten? It feels like it's a cop-out of the whole feeling of being lost in the Star Wars galaxy.
I agree. But it's interesting, right? Like
I think they did a good job of being like, the parents know, the parents care, they're limited by the, not the Grand Superior. What's his name? The administrator? No.
The supervisor.
Supervisor.
And that's sort of like, and that's just where they're at right now. It's like we could.
By the way, we do see a statue on Akron with its head.
Yeah. With head,
broken.
Captain Headless.
But it's interesting.
Captain No Head.
Yeah, King No Head or whatever he says. And I was like,
King No Head.
To me, it's like, is that the supervisor? Like I was. Why is that statue erected? What is that?
I was very like, this is interesting that we don't see a head on the statue. That's very telling.
Being like 400 years ago in like the temple. I was like, whoa, keep going about the temple 400 years ago or whatever. The Jedi.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it was gone. I was like,
I guess that's like one of the mysteries too. But I'm like kind of convinced that the captain is the, like, I guess not necessarily like. Who's the captain, and then who's the supervisor? And are there? I forget how many planets are there. Are there 9 or 8? What? But like, do they each have their own?
Yeah, 8 or 9.
Do they each have their own supervisor, or is there one supervisor? Like,
there are 6.
6. Okay,
6.
So it's like,
well, if it's a droid hive mind, there's probably one in multiple droid bodies.
Yeah, there's one. Which is At-Aten. It's the. Is the central hub.
Adam's theory is just growing and just developing.
It's a great theory.
Prepared to be disappointed.
Yeah, I know, because I'm thinking it's going to be like just a big time actor who's just like hired to be this fun, like strange.
It's an Anzellan that's
probably.
like, hey,
very.
Because it is the Wizard of Oz,
very
right?
Wizard of Oz.
You get 33 to an Anzellan. Yeah, exactly. I was like, where is he gonna? They got to get 33 to an Anzellan to get to uncross his memory circuits, like to figure out what's in there. Like, either Fern's gonna like snap her fingers, wake him up, and get the download on the deets, or like they're gonna have to bring him to an Anzellan.
I mean, I love the idea of like a primitive droid was the supervisor, and they like created this like whole. You know, I was created to make a utopia on 6 planets, and we did the thing. And it's like, he's like, but according to my calculations, we couldn't make all of them survive, so we've reduced to just one, and like calculation, something, you know, I don't know. Like, it makes sense, like, but because it's going to be some like weird wizard behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, I think so. I totally think so. My brain is flaking on me because I read so many different books constantly, like, you know how I read my books. I'm crazy like jumping between series.
You will read like the second of a series and then read the first of another series.
Because I can't, because I fall off series if I read them in a row. But there was it Dune, there's something else, but I'm wondering if part of me is like, now is like, did they create these 6 identical worlds and did different experiments on each world?
That's what I was saying with the vault thing. Is this the Fallout thing? Could be like, is it?
Yeah. Oh, it's the Fallout thing. That's where it was. That's they're taking it from Fallout. Thank you. It's just driving me nuts. I couldn't figure out. Yeah, Fallout did that, so they're probably not going to do that.
It would be a little.
Yeah. Fallout. I love that part of Fallout.
It would be a little bit too similar to Fallout, essentially.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially something so recent. I forgot it was so recent, or else I said it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in the cards, right?
I consume too much media.
I know.
No, I think
I consume everything, man. I don't know. Could be.
The High Republic is a great precedent for these isolationist sort of planets that were, you know, sealed away to hide wealth because the Republic was in danger, right? Like the Republic was constantly being attacked by Nihil or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. Then I love the High Republic books are fantastic. I love all that stuff. It's just I don't know. I'm interested to see. I think you could do something even older. I think you could do.
I would.
I think you could do something totally different. And they said Old Republic.
Yeah.
And like, I think they would say
name
Republic because I think that is like a Renaissance sort of period in which you acknowledge, you know.
I'm with you, Grant, for sure.
I don't know. Like your Old Republic to me is Luthen says the
we need that
from the Rakata invasion. Like there are touchstones to the old, you know, history of the galaxy, and I feel like why not? Why not do Old Republic and then set up a new timeline with them? But also, it's like you're trying to explain why Space Modesto exists, why that architecture exists, like why they know about Jedi. Like you're trying to explain all of this stuff, which is like it has to almost be a branching society that's
my thought. Like it developed in parallel to the
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I did think that, like, you know, the barrier is very close to the storm wall, and I was like, oh, it could be repurposed storm wall tech that they, like, someone squirreled away.
I agree. The barrier looks kind of Nihil. Like when you see, like, the big...
and I'm trying to think, like,
red lights.
What was one of the Staros, right? Avon Staros was, like, one of the technicians on that, and the other one was actually that really flashy guy that I really like with the big fluffy...
Greylark?
No.
Greylark?
Not Greylark, no.
No. Yeah, but I remember
we've been too far away from the High Republic.
It's like Axel something.
There's so many characters.
Axel. It's the guy that has the big fluffy dog. And
I know what you're talking about now. Oh my god.
He's so great.
Graf.
Oh, he's a Graf.
Zylan
Graf.
Oh, did that
Let's go.
There you go. Wow.
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah, Zylan Graf.
That's amazing.
And like,
didn't even know
I just could see him being like, well, I'm just going to take this and create my utopian society and goodbye, like with his bajillions of credits and start something. I mean, like a Zylan Graf would be interesting. But I'm with you, Grant. I really think let's open up a new period of the timeline in the nebulous Old Republic and just start teasing out that area for people to sort of get a taste of what it could feel like.
It's also like bring this to Disney World. Like it feels like you could easily sort of design a Tomorrowland that looks like this, like that looks like at Atten. That would be so much fun to walk through, and those houses are awesome. And
it really is, because it's got that mid-century modern, like post-futurist, like
cool.
vibe that they had in those like early Epcot things. Are like, this is the home of the future.
Yeah,
exactly.
So there has to maybe there's like a World's Fair element to that, right? To the whole thing, right?
There really is. That's a good call.
Like, these societies, these colonies will go out there and seal themselves away, and each one will be safeguard some sort of treasure, and at the same time they will be bastions of like efficiency and greatness and excellence.
I want to see. The other thing that's funny is like we talk about, this is always with Star Wars. We talk about Atten, we talk about an entire planet, but we only ever see like a city and suburbs. And part of me is like, that's all that's on that. Like that's the only part that's actually
did anyone
like,
else think that like they were actually on Atten, but like on a burned out half of the planet?
I was wondering that. I thought maybe that I started getting nervous that there was time travel elements for a second, but then
no, I was just wondering like geographical
I thought maybe
elements.
the same.
It's like they got back to Atten, but it's like the other side of your planet is like messed up.
Wiped out,
and that's all happening. Like, how big is Atten's community? Like, is it planet wide or is it like kind of small?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so unclear, and I love this idea of like the World's Fair and Epcot, because like all I want now is to see an aerial view of the city, because I'm like, because I would not put it against the Star Wars nerds to actually use like Disney's experimental prototype City of Tomorrow Epcot, like. Because it is a central, like, if you ever saw those designs, which anyone wants to have a fun 15 minutes, look at the history of Epcot, because Epcot was not supposed to be a theme park. Disney actually wanted it to be a living city. There was he had developed this, and there was actually like a central hub with all these buses and trains that would take people from the outer suburbs and go under. It was all circular. It was all built around circle with the central hub where the work area was. And then he died, and then his brother made it to a theme park. But it's true. Wow. That's exactly what happened. Like Roy Disney was just like, we're not gonna make money off of this. Let's just make it a theme park that everyone in the 80s thought was the most boring thing ever.
But it could have been amazing.
But it could have been amazing. It does feel very, when you look at it, it feels very like scary utopia. Where of like this feels very, but it feels very similar to what they're doing here, which is interesting. Anyway,
no, that's good. I could go deeper on that. Jenny and I were just talking about like the 15-minute city and like urban planning tonight, and like that's like what people are trying to go towards. And the place where I was for this past week was far from here, and it was just, I was like, who planned this? Because it feels like every other like suburban town I've ever been in. I could be anywhere in the United States right now. It's just like so generic and like soulless, as opposed to like actually having some thought to urban planning. But I'm not going to besmirch whatever that fine town's name was. Anyways, do we want Curmudgeon's Corner? I mean, McCluskey's
No, I think Clunk Corner was basically my Mud Jumper's helmet that I was going to be like, this cements that this takes place in the Imperial era, and like I was going to be like, and like therefore the Jedi, like this Rex cannon, I was going to be that guy for like 20 minutes. But
Grant, I'm not letting that stuff go by either. I am super highly attuned to just like, don't ruin my canon. Like, don't you dare. Like, do something but they're so far past that. There are teams of highly paid people to prevent that from happening. Filoni would never let that happen. Pablo would never let that happen. Kathleen would never have that. Like, there's no way at this point.
I feel well protected, and I feel the Justice League is work. They're doing incredible work.
It has to be on purpose. It's.
I don't have a pacing issue as much as Adam. I talked about at the beginning. It's more of a.
I'm kind of over.
I think we talked it out. Now we
it always happens. Again. Yeah, it's always happens with me.
We like
love it. 10 out of 10.
No, it's same with me.
We like this episode. I think it's more of the Jodna Nawood and whatever this is, because it just feels like it's few and far between that we get anything about him, and it's. So I'm worried. I'm worried that like a lot's hanging on this, and
he is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, he's a ticking time bomb, and we're just kind of waiting this out. And I think that reveal will tell me, oh, should we have introduced some other elements of him earlier? Or And so I can't wait to see what the ultimate truth is about him.
Yeah.
I'm feeling similar, and I think part of where it came in, I don't think I identified what we talked about. That's why I felt a little like disconnected from this episode a little bit, is because the person I'm most interested in is John, right? And he's just not in this episode all that much. However, this is a show that's meant to bring in younger viewers. So of course we're going to spend the majority of time with the kids, who are all great.
So good.
And like, again, I just want to applaud. To have 4 child actors on the screen at the same time, and all 4 of them doing the work that they're doing as well, is amazing. Like, there's usually, I think back to the Goonies, I won't name names, but there's always 1 or 2 that are really hard to watch, right, in a group of kid actors, and all 4 of them are like, I can't imagine how much they were like casting this thing, going like, we cannot mess this up. We cannot mess this up. Like,
there are some extremely watchable kids in Goonies too, though. It's
there's so many, but there's a couple. Won't name names.
No, but all these kids are just knocking it out of the park. I am really surprised with the acting and just the blocking and sort of like how the kids are doing the action bits, and I love all that stuff. I think it's all really, really fun. The Neil fainting like meme.
That was a good bit.
Yeah,
so great.
That was going to be all over the internet. Anytime you can't make it to an event, it's just going to be the Neil fainting on the floor.
Love it.
Just giving up.
Yeah, they're also great. KB is a dark horse favorite already. Like, her tech really works.
Of the kids, she's definitely the coolest one. She's like got the.
She has all these
tech. Yeah. Like.
She does, and there are 2 moments of KB in this episode that I appreciate. One, when the blaster hits the headless statue, everyone ducks down.
She's
just standing there.
No big deal, guys.
Is like trying to analyze it, and someone grabs her and pulls her down. And then Wim gives her a high five when they're doing training.
Yeah.
Did you see that moment where she doesn't know how to do it? And my favorite part of it is that she doesn't know how to do it. And then he turns away really quick, and she does this really winning, tiny smile to herself. And it's just such a moment of just like, she's like, oh, I'm a kid. Oh. Like it was fun. Like, just a little moment of him. Sort of her being
that was actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That was really endearing. And also, her going 4 for 4 on blaster practice, he was just like, this isn't hard. She's like, bang, bang, bang. That's going to rear its head again. Yeah. Like, she's going to have a blaster and smoke some people.
Yep. Yeah, I'm like, if you're going to put anyone in the turrets
her.
in that thing, put her. I guess,
I also think Wim is great. Like, I think Wim as sort of like the first kid you could introduce to, and this kid who's kind of at the center of the journey, who kind of goes to the background in this episode, which was interesting to see Neil and Fern sort of take the foreground. He's just such a winner. Like, and on paper, that kid should annoy me. Like, that kid out of all the kids should annoy me.
He should be annoying when he's not.
He's such a winner.
Yeah. Him is like, yo, check out this gun. And he like drags it out. He's like, blam, that was awesome. And it's just like, all right. It was still kind of cool. And all those like interjections of just like, that Star Trek script, he like belted out. And then like, he's just like having fun and doing his thing. And yes, he's like kind of an annoying little brother.
He is the audience surrogate.
Well, he's got like that, and he's got that, and that infectious optimism, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
Well, I think he's just like I think he's just doing really great acting in terms of reacting to like shooting a blaster spear and like, his trepidation. Like, there's a lot with Wim that's just working, and like in any movie, any Goonies, any kind of situation here, this is kind of the kid who's the loudmouth, like, imagination over everything, like, thinking about himself and his own journeys and not thinking about everyone. And then, but like, he has a huge heart. He cares deeply about Fern. He's like, they're doing such great writing with his character that's making him actually one of the most endearing characters. And I was like, this is great, because like I could see a bad version of this show where you don't have the right Wim, basically, and this kid's such a winner.
It wouldn't be watchable at that point, because you would just hate him. What's interesting is like, this thing is just so much the Goonies, and I know that's not anything that's really that amazingly said, but I'm mapping it because, again, the Goonies is probably the movie I watched the most as a kid, like to the point where my parents paid $100 to buy the VHS because I rented it every weekend, and they're like, we're bleeding money, and like 100%. Wim is Mikey, right? Wim is the Sean Astin character, right? And like Fern is, I'm going to say this. I'm not. This is going to get kind of whatever, but she's the Data, right? Character of it, right? And like Fern is Mouth, and Neil is Chunk, right?
Yeah.
Like it maps on it kind of clearly, except they're not annoying.
Yeah.
Like they don't make any of them like negative characters, because Mouth is annoying and Chunk is annoying and Mikey's annoying. Data's perfect. Data's perfect. Full stop. But like, do you know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things where I just think it's interesting where like they found those same archetypes, but took down the 80s. Let's make kids also annoying.
Yeah. It's like it's not 80s annoying kid. It's actually these actually endearing. Yeah, it's actually fun.
Yeah,
fun.
Good stuff.
The only thing I didn't like about this episode was that it was too short.
I know that was your. That's I was considering that coming a mile away.
More Star Wars.
More Star Wars, and that's a Ben problem, not a Star Wars. Like everyone else is like, oh, that was a great piece of thing that came out every week. But I just want more of this, and I want it down my gullet, and I want it now, and I want 6 hours of it. Let's go.
You wanted a tiny bit more of like after they wake Neil up on the ship, like they go to their next.
I wanted another hour and a half, bro. Like I wanted to just like
okay,
my
every episode to be movie length.
I just like want more. That's just
that's why you need the Clone Wars show. I'm pitching you this.
Let's
Clone
go.
Wars
All right,
show
so 6 hour and a half episodes. Let's do that, or 6 full hour long episodes.
Hour long episodes.
I mean, don't forget we're getting 12 episodes of Andor season 2, and as I remember, those episodes are big boys. At least they're usually closer to 45, aren't they?
Because I'm looking at like what are they doing? The Dune show. They're all hour long episodes, and I'm like, yeah.
I think the beauty of hour long with science fiction is that you can do all this process stuff, like that actually just does nothing for plot or character development. That's more of just like, here's how the world works, and here's a 20-minute segment where people have to move through a certain piece of the world in a certain way. And
so Ben, you and I are complete opposites on this, because like I love me like get in, get out, do your thing. Because like, so we're watching the show Black Doves right now, which like highly recommend, super fun. But like it's a British show, which I love the British stuff. So it's 6 episodes for the season. That's great. But then I sit down to watch this thing, and I'm like, I need to know how long an episode is before I start watching it, because otherwise I start going, is this the climax? Is this the climax? Is this the climax? Is it like I do the thing? I do the Return of the King thing.
Imagine that world.
I can't do that. Like I know it would drive me nuts, because literally with it's an hour long show, I will spend the last 20 minutes of the show going, and credits, nope, and credits, nope. And credits. Nope. Like it's
imagine just enjoying a show and going
so,
illness.
I can't do that. And so, but like I watch Black Doves, and when they say this an hour episode, I'm like, oh god, like just committing an hour to watching an episode. And then I sit there, and this is a me problem. I sit there and go like, could have cut that scene.
Oh my gosh.
Could have cut that. That's irrelevant.
We should take this off the pod because I want to talk about this for like a full hour with you, even though we both don't want to sit around for an hour doing anything, like we just said. But like, if you go an hour, and like if the payoffs aren't there, never again.
I've wasted an hour of my life.
Never again stamp happens, and it's just like the payoffs need to work. It needs to be full bodied, like a nice vintage. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be full bodied each episode, full bodied. Nice vintage.
I got that. I have
flavor.
faith that they could make an hour payoff, but that's just my appetite. But I do, and Adam, you're right. I am exactly opposite. I intentionally do not look at the timing because I don't want to know when the thing will be over. And actually, I think I was a little relieved when they did finally go to the Forsaken Tower, because I wasn't sure they were going to move on to that next point.
Actually going to get there by the end. Yeah. I will say, like, I think a lot of it's based on the show. Like, I like the Mandalorian shows being 30 to 40 minutes because I think they're faster, they're pulpier, they're whatever. And Andor, give me every single episode of Andor an hour. And I will live in that world, and I don't mind it slow paced. I don't mind the
conversations. They're all
so that's kind of
right, like I'm there for the
exactly, and they're also well written, and you're just involved in the talking. Because like, don't get me wrong, like we've talked about it. Like, I love the movie Rope, which is just like a single scene of people like in a thing in a room talking.
When the dialogue,
like I don't mind a movie that's just people talking. But the dialogue got to be there, and I'm not here for the Mandalorian verse. Mandoverse,
for the dialogue
intended for the dialogue, right? I'm there for the storytelling.
So this is the way is one of the greatest.
What is? I don't even know how you do like. To me, because the brain trust is like Dave Filoni and Pablo Hidalgo, and Rebels and Clone Wars are like sort of major pieces in their portfolios. It's like, and then George also, it was his impetus with Star Wars to sort of make this, or the Clone Wars series was to make a sort of serial sci-fi adventure show, and then just in the big saga films, you get these operas essentially, like to pad out the running time. It's a big fantasy fairy tale opera. I just don't know what hour long looks like in Star Wars, like in terms of like making it satisfying. Like I guess Andor episodes ran like what 43 minutes sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes up to 50, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's satisfying.
And it didn't feel like it. Yeah.
So I worry about long form and what they do to satisfy you there. Like I don't even know what more Star Wars, like hour-long Star Wars looks like. Unless you do, again, like a Band of Brothers, like Clone Wars process. You almost need like a process padded sort of something that's in the galaxy, the war with the Nihil, I don't care, whatever you want to do. But like, to me, the Clone Wars is just sitting there. And like, lots of stuff that's situated in an hour is interesting. If you just do like bombastic adventure for an hour, I'm gonna be like, this is completely, the juice is
which is Mandoverse. You need the 30 to 40 minutes at most. And the thing, like, I don't want to go into a whole discussion about streaming, but one of the only things I really like about streaming, one of the things I've actively learned to appreciate is that like you're not beholden to episodes having to be 30 minutes or an hour or 22 minutes or 44 minutes, that you can let shows be as long as they need. So I remember watching Mandalorian the first season, and I still remember just going like, oh, this episode's like 25 minutes and this episode's 38 minutes, and like I appreciate that of storytellers being like, we don't have to put padding in here to get it to 22 minutes, or we can cut a ton out. Like I love that. I think that's good, and I think I will argue that I think Star Wars actually is how long these shows should be. There's a couple of episodes of Ahsoka that I particularly remember going like, I think some of them got over like 40 minutes, and I was just like, this is dragging to me. And then Andor's at like 45 to 50 minutes. I'm like, this could have actually been longer. Like I feel like I think it depends.
Speaking of Fallout, I mean, that show does give you consistently like almost hour-long episodes.
Yeah, and I didn't mind that in that show.
And it was good.
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Again, that was process though. There was like so much vault stuff, so much world process stuff, and world building that was part of the establishing of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think watching the Dune show that the name of it's escaping me right now.
Dune Prophecy.
Prophecy, right? Like that, I'm like, oh, all right, because I mean, Dune is essentially like Star Wars is a derivative of Dune, but I'm like, oh yeah, you could do that, just like showing new locations, doing different, for me it works as an hour long, show that just sort of goes on and on, and I could just see it feels like a Star Wars to me when I watch it. So
yeah,
you didn't feel like there was kind of like a severe quality drop off from like the Villeneuve, like the films?
I do.
Okay, yeah, because like when I watched the show, I was like, this is severe.
Yeah, but
I was like, this is
dude. I still enjoy it. Like I'm hearing the story, and I can still just sort of like turn off that part of my brain and just sort of enjoy it. I don't think it's so like visually offensive. Like, I mean, Villeneuve's like the shots in that are breathtaking and
you're not going to be able to replicate that.
You're never going to get it, and it's just like there's a drop off there, but it's still pretty cool. And I'm just enjoying.
No, that's cool.
I enjoy the universe and whatever. I don't know. I have a tolerance for this sort of thing. But so in that vein,
I watched the first episode and then I kind of fell off. But I didn't not like what I was watching. It was just more of like,
I will watch it, but
this is very homework.
Different. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I just also read those books, and to me, like the books are so paramount in my mind that like it's like hallowed territory, because I imagine they were working off of Frank's notes and stuff like that to write those prequel books, and like it's pretty hallowed ground, and like I almost like it's almost like worse when you illuminate that territory. Like it's almost like better to be like you want to know more about the machine, like the Balerian Jihad, and you want to learn about the machines and why mentats exist. Like, and you gotta like go back and find these weird books,
and they're also just not.
They're just weird.
And those books are weird. Grant told me how weird they are, and he was still underselling how weird they are, in a good way. But like, I was also reading this going, you can't do this in movies. You cannot do this, or on television. And it's not because it's like unfilmable. Like, people will revolt in the streets if you do the things that they do in this book. You will, like, society will be like, no, this is unacceptable. I do not want to watch this. No, you can't do this. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
It is challenging.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
Yeah.
The machines are disturbing in the book, and I like that. That's my favorite stuff.
I love it, but it's like, it's a tough read.
I'm a firm believer that, like, you need to watch the show before you read the book, because you'll watch the show, you will enjoy the show, you will read the book, and you'll be like, and then you'll really enjoy the book. So you will enjoy both mediums simultaneously.
But
Game of Thrones is like that, where the books are night and day. You're envisioning sort of different characters,
except for the first season's almost like page for page.
I know, I was shocked when
I don't know that. Yeah, I guess you're right, because they reshot the open to match the book. They reshot that open. Because I think initially when they shot the first episode, it was not like the book, and then they like reshot that intro to like match the book and how
did they start with the they did start with the people beyond the wall.
It was Beyond the Wall. I remember that.
Yeah, because I remember that's how the book starts, and you're like, what?
Having never read the books, I remember watching that first episode and going, oh yeah, there's gonna be so much crazy supernatural stuff, and then you watch the next 10 episodes and you're like,
it's like,
no, there's nothing, and then it gets there eventually in the first seasons.
Like,
but I remember, oh, cool.
To speak to Grant's comment, I totally agree, because I was that guy. I was like, well, actually, in the books, they were like, and this person's not there, and they collapse.
Yeah, you were book first, and then shows.
Yeah, and I hate myself for it. And actually, Lord of the Rings, I did sort of both ways, where I like saw the first season, then I was like, I got to check those books out again, and then read them. And I think by the time, I think I'd finished the series before Return of the King, and then I was blown away, because I was like, oh my gosh. Like, in that case, because Return of the King is almost like scene for scene the movie with the with the
really
book. And I was like, they're gonna show this? Like, oh my gosh. And it was great.
But I agree. Like, I saw Jurassic Park first before reading the book. Yeah. And I love them both. And I feel like if I had watched I read the book first, I would have been sitting there in the theater going, what are you doing this? You cut so many of these things out that are great. And now, like, I can appreciate them both because I experienced the movie first. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a way to consume it. Yeah.
I think.
Anyways, we were on the topic of hour-long Star Wars. Like, I just don't know what would...
I don't know.
What would live there? I don't even know what that show is, other than Andor or something.
I think it's Andor. I think that's the answer. Yeah, right?
Andor's
I think that is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just missing Andor. We'll get that.
And they get those long. They have completely let him off the chain for Andor season 2. Seems to be all the reports is that, like, he is just.
Let's go.
They're like, just go cook, just do your thing. So I would not be surprised if we get, knowing how he's a storyteller, if we don't get an couple hour long episodes in there.
It's so funny because, like, I saw the Superman trailer today, and I was like,
"Are we gonna do this?"
James Gunn does not have any, like, he has no one to say no around him. Like,
clearly,
it is just unrestrained James Gunn right your veins.
Yeah,
and it's great. And
there's gonna be some great stuff that comes out of it.
And like, I'm excited to see what happens with that. I love James Gunn as a creator. I love Guardians 1 and 2, 2 specifically.
I love 2. 2 is so underrated.
2 is so fun, so good, like, so wonderful, such a beautiful piece of art.
I was shocked when people were like not responding to this, and we're seeing the theory going, "This is amazing," and everyone's like, "It's fine." Like, what are you talking about?
Genius.
Yeah.
But it's just all yes men around James Gunn right now, and that's great, and I love that, and I can't wait to see how this universe unfolds. Like, Tony Gilroy is one of those creators where, like, no, like, I am happy. Like, there's less people saying no to him.
Give him
like,
the bag and walk away.
People saying no to him, the better. Like, he is. I just want to see, unrestrained, unfiltered Tony Gilroy. Like, I want to inject that straight into my, brain.
Can you imagine if season 2 is better than season 1? Like, if they just let him cook. Oh,
I mean, like,
kind of think it.
Season 1 was like a perfect series to me.
It is. It's going to be hard to be better, but I think what season 2 has going for it is the idea that it's really not. It's not one season. It's going to be, was it 3 miniseries, right? Or no, 4, 3 or 4. Is it 3 4 hours or 4 3 hours? 4 3 hours. So it's like it's going to be 4 movies.
3-episode arcs. Yeah,
it's going to be 4 movies. That's what it's going to be. Because if each is 40 minutes, you're at what, 2 hours, right? 2 hours per. You're getting 4 movies. It's going to be amazing. Yeah,
it's going to be great. All right, but this show is great too. It's just, it's only 30 minutes, and, like, so we could only talk for an hour and a half about it.
I know. I find it ironic we're talking about how everything should be 30 minutes. Everything should be shorter, and we just passed the hour and a half mark. But whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, this is so fun. I can't wait till next week to check out the next episode. We don't know what the title is. It's going to be great. Sorry, Adam, do you remember who the director is for next week? Yeah, you just said it.
Jake Schreier.
Jake Schreier. Who's doing Thunderbolts?
He did
and he did some other stuff.
Robot and Frank, which is a great movie.
That's why I got excited, because I saw that he did Robot and Frank, which is awesome.
Yeah,
good movie, good independent movie, and and then we'll see his big screen premiere or his like giant screen premiere with the Thunderbolts. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, so you have some homework.
Big names.
Big names. Should be great. But thanks for hanging out with us at the Cantina like you do every week, and we'll talk to you next week. On what's the name of this show called again? It is
Cantina Chronicles.